Hello, Grace, and welcome back to another exciting edition of Cover to Cover. It is April 13th, and today we are covering 1 Samuel, chapter 15, verse 1, all the way to 17:31. We've got a lot going on, and so we're going to first give a gloss over what's going on, and then we'll zoom back on some of the more difficult things. First off, it opens with King Saul, being victory over the Amalekites. In the course of this victory, he fails to observe or to follow the command of God, which is to do something. The biblical word here is haram. Sometimes it's translated as the ban or absolute devotion to God or absolute destruction. He's been commanded to kill every man, woman, and child in the battle, along with all the livestock, and to give everything devoted unto God. But instead, he chooses not to. He saves the life of Agag, king of Amalek, and he reserves for himself and some of the troops the spoils of war. That transitions to Samuel showing up. And what does Samuel say? You failed to obey God. And so for this reason, the kingdom will be taken from you. You would have had a kingdom that endured forever, but it's now going to go to somebody else. So at this point, Saul clutches on Samuel's robe, and his robe tears, and Samuel says, just as this tear, you tore my robe, so the kingdom will be torn from you. And so the chapter kind of concludes with Samuel grieving the loss of Saul as king, this passing on of the royal responsibility. That leads us to the next chapter, chapter 16, where Samuel heads over at the command of God to go find Jesse, and Jesse has 8 sons, and he's there to go choose a son to be anointed as the next king of Israel. The text is kind of ambiguous in that nobody seems to know, apart from Samuel, nobody really knows why he is going here and anointing anybody. So we, as the reader, know that David is being anointed as king, but everybody else there is just kind of like, we don't know what's happening. The text then transitions to another scene. We see that 2 things have happened. One, when David is anointed, the Spirit of God rushes into him. It comes upon him. So we see that anointing is a real meaningful thing, that he's being led by the Spirit now. And that transitions right into Saul, where we see that the Spirit has left Saul, and instead he has a tormenting spirit. And immediately his courtesans, the people that are there, say, hey, you know what you need is some music. And we know a guy who plays the harp really well. And so they recruit David to go spend time in Saul's court. He eventually becomes the armor bearer, and it said that whenever David plays the harp, that Saul, it calms him down. The next scene that gets transitioned is after that, as we find that Israel is then at battle against the Philistines. And this is where we're introduced to Goliath. Key aspect of this part of the story is how much time is devoted to describing Goliath, how tall he is, what kind of weapons he has, how much armor he has. A lot of emphasis is put on there. And if we recall the story of Judges, there's a lot of parallel between what's happening here and, like, say, the judge Shamgar and Gideon, where you have judges that are up against insurmountable odds. And so we have this setup. Goliath is this big mean baddie, and however he is defeated, if he is defeated, we know that it can only be done through the help of God. And that brings us back to what are some points in this story. The big one, the big controversial point, is obviously this idea of total devotion, this idea of haram, the violence in the Old Testament, what's taking place. No scholar really agrees on what's all taking place here. Some people traditionally say that, oh, there's a good excuse for this, the Amalekites were just so sinful, this just absolutely had to do. Most people recognize that there's a discontinuity between what's happening here in the Old Testament and Jesus' command to love one another in the New Testament. And that has led many theologians, Gnostics and heretical people, to come up to posit that there are two different gods. There's a God of the New Testament, and there's a God of the Old Testament, because they see so much violence taking place in the Old Testament. I can give you a very unsatisfactory answer that happens to be kind of true. And it is this literary concept called aporia, where the text intentionally posits you with a conundrum that is not easily resolved. And throughout the book of Judges, and going into Samuel and Kings, and actually starting all the way in Deuteronomy, we have this crux where God commands people to do stuff, he appoints leaders, and the people still fail. There's no way around it. And then you get this command, or this prophetic utterance. You see it first in Deuteronomy, and then you see it in Jeremiah, and then in Ezekiel. The idea that the heart needs to be circumcised. The law needs to be written on the heart. These hearts of stone need to be replaced with hearts of flesh. And so the story that it's telling from, the Torah through Judges, through Samuel, and all the way through Kings, is that there is no institution, there's no right way of doing this, there's no perfect obedience. It's all kind of falling apart until we fix the real problem, which is going to be a transformation of the heart. And so in the course of it, it's kind of giving a what if or what about. It's fleshing it out through all of these different narrative stories. It's just giving us this big concept to kind of ponder and to debate over. And so that's what I leave you with. Thank you.